guys that know on my team, but they're on 3 or 4.
Okay, mind your P's and Q's. We're going
I've
live.
had family that spent $5 here and then I'm thinking, can't. Yeah. All right, we ready?
I think we're ready.
Let's go ahead and call the June 1st, 2026 Tipton Utility Service Board meeting to order. The first item on the agenda are the minutes from the last meeting.
Move they be approved as submitted.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the last meeting as submitted. Are there any comments, changes to that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We'll move to claims next.
Make a motion, we pay claims 27,934 through 27,982 for $422,766.32.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve claims as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
All
We're up to
right.
you, sir.
So I think what I'd like to do is go through my normal customary updates, and then we'll push the resolutions to the end of the meeting. That way we got all the time in the world to cover that ground. So starting with the financials, I passed out the May financials. Everything's in order. I would point out, because it dovetails into our discussion coming up on rates, that the water balance is down almost 300 grand from a year ago. And that was due to the investments we made on West Street and East Street to replace aging infrastructure at the time when it was going to be uncovered with the road project. So otherwise, everything seems to be in order. Is there any questions on the financials? Okay. Moving on to some other updates. On the safety front, we did have safety training on Wednesday, May 20th regarding bloodborne pathogens. And it's probably the most well-attended meeting we've had in years with the city and utility employees. Just a good one for most employees that get exposure and have a better understanding of what they can do ahead of time or react to if they would like to have an exposure. So still moving forward. Parker, you mentioned our IT and our website. We got the vendor lined up, papered up contractually, and he's ready to start work. So hopefully in the next couple meetings, I'll be able to point to our website and say it's back where it needs to be. Haven't had any requests about the website, but and the good news is our paying customers who go through the website through the links have still been able to utilize that portal. So I did attend the IMPA board meeting last Friday, May 29th. Probably the only two items I would offer tonight is the combustion turbine project in Anderson is still on schedule, still moving forward through the design process. And I think it'll probably be sometime next year in 27 before we stick a shovel in the ground, and hope to be operational by the end of 2029. So keep in mind that's I think it's $350 million project with orders of equipment from Germany and other places. And the data center boom is having a real impact on some of that equipment. So we kind of got in right ahead of that game from a cost and schedule standpoint. So we're in good shape there. The other thing that was discussed, and there was actually a presentation on the city of Richmond, who's our biggest member in the IMPA communities. They installed a battery storage project at their site, at one of their solar sites. So they collect the energy from their solar panels, goes into the battery storage, and then from headquarters in Carmel, they can dispatch the battery storage at the proper time when the market says we need more, or the IMPA customers need more energy or electricity. It's like 6 or 7 megawatts of battery storage, which is, I mean, it's a good bit. It's not anything like what you're hearing other companies that are wanting to put hundreds of megawatts of battery storage. But it's a good start for IMPA. Financially, it seems to be working out as far as being able to hedge the markets a little bit better with a little bit of backup. So that was the long and the short of the IMPA meeting. Couple items on the waterfront, Tipton Water. We every 2 years, we have to do a water audit for our city system. They want to know how much water we're losing in the system. And we passed just under 4%, which is phenomenally low water loss. So there's leaks in the ground somewhere. The big ones we see, the roads, move and the pipes burst and we got water everywhere. We fix those. It's very straightforward. There's other small ones we don't see. So we're losing 4%. And commonly systems, you lose 15 to 20% and get high flying passing grades for that. So the auditor that came in, he's been here coming in for quite a while. He said, we just moved to the head of the class out of like 25 or 30 audits he's already performed this year. And he doesn't expect he'll see anything much better than that. So hats off to the whole water crew, Jeff Hurd and Rick Tilley, that, the leadership, and then Connor Tilley and Paul Ferguson, Delbert Lacey and Brayton Lacey. They do a great job. And this is just one more outcome that proves that point.
For sure. Congrats to them.
Yeah. And one other thing on the waterfront, at our west plant, we have a concrete ground storage tank right next to the plant. Well, we had a drone technology come out and clean that. So they had a pressure washer hooked to a drone and did all the up and down and across and around. And then they went into the city plant and did some other stuff. But I'm going to send you some pictures tomorrow. I'll show you the before and after. Looks really nice. We don't think it's been cleaned probably in the 15 years it's been in service, because it's just, we don't want to mess with that tank when that was our only part of the system that had finished water in it. Now with the water tower, not only are we going to clean the outside like we did, we're going to go inside and find out if there's frogs and turtles and just kidding out there, probably. But we will finally get a chance to clean the interior of that same tank. So again, hats off to the water team for accepting new technology. These folks with the drones said they can go all the way up to the top of a water tower and clean. How we had this one cleaned, had to rent a big lift and do that. They said we can do that. So we'll see. It's young guy out of Sharpsville, I think, and another Tipton guy, and they've started this business, and they're former military guys, and they're off and running. So,
is there some thing we could do to recognize the water team for like the audit and stuff? I think that's a good opportunity.
Beyond publicly
saying,
stating
yeah.
it tonight and putting it in the meeting minutes, I'm glad to take them to lunch one day. Yeah, I'll do that.
I feel like we should
Yeah.
recognize that kind of an achievement. That's a big.
Absolutely. Write that down, Mr. Reeser. We got to take care of them. That's a great idea. Thank you for pointing that out. On the wastewater front, so we worked with Matt Smith, who's in the audience with Strand, and we went back and forth with IDEM on sewer use ordinance and getting this language in, and wait, we forgot that. And I think we've accomplished what we need to. The ball is in IDEM's court, has been for a couple of weeks. And as soon as they say you're good to go, which I think will be the next step, then I'll craft a resolution for the utility board. Then we'll go to city council and push that on through. Though should all be formalities at this point. Any comments on that, Matt?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think there's really any changes that will impact your industrial users, but it's cleaning up language that I didn't want. So,
yep. We update our permit every 5 years, and the permit and the sewer use ordinance weren't quite jiving, and that was the gist of the changes. So. A few project updates. The new speedway out at Campbell Crossing, out by Love's, there's huge dirt piles everywhere out there. They have broken ground with a vengeance, and they're going to town putting storm sewer in. And I was told by their superintendent in probably 2 weeks they'll try to locate our water and sewer connections that are already on that side of the road, on the west side of Campbell Crossing. So we'll work closely with them and try to facilitate, good connection and have them hooked up. they still claim we'll be pumping gas out there by Thanksgiving, so stay tuned there. The Stroop property, the 70 acres just north of our water plant out on County Road 560, the developer out there is going in front of the County Plan Commission this Thursday at 6 o'clock for a public use PUD. What's PUD?
Planned unit development.
Planned unit development.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Planned unit development consideration approval. I don't know, maybe some variances involved, but anyway, that's going to happen. And Don, I think you offered that you could represent the utilities. I'll be out of town, but I've given them a lot of information in the past. We're right there with everything except electrical. We got to come from the substation and get across with the county folks on budgeting on some of that stuff, and we'll see where. I don't know how quickly this will move after assuming they get this PUD approval.
They have most of the general accounting, rough general accounting already with that, correct?
Yep, from our standpoint, yeah. Jefferson Street, we had Scott Reeser, who's in the audience. Also, we met with our design engineer, the city's design engineer, American Structure Point. I think was it last week, Scott, and just went up, updated design. Once again, we're going to try to replace, I think it's about 3,000 feet of water line and 4 or 5 sewer crossings. And I think one of the outcomes from that meeting was actual work is probably closer to 2029 than 2027. So that's pushing out. Design's coming right along. So I think they're getting ready, and I don't know when they'll put those plans out to bid, but I think there's a funding mechanism that's pushed into, the next year that's pushed out the actual construction. So be watching for that. And I think that's about it on project updates and everything in general. Is there any other questions on that I can help you with?
Any questions or comments from the board?
I think you had mentioned one time that the new owners of the plant out at 28 and 31 had asked for a commitment, like a revised commitment.
So year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago in August, we presented them a commitment on, we can give you this much electricity, water and wastewater. In the last few weeks, they've come back and said they're starting to get serious about that. Can we get a recommitment?
Okay.
And I'm working on that.
Okay.
So I should have something to share with the utility board later this week, but they're wanting to repurpose it for something, and they're mainly interested in electricity, much more so now than water and wastewater. So stay tuned there.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else from the board?
Okay, let's talk about a couple resolutions on water and sewer rates here in the city. So as you recall, we have rates for the city customers, and then we have rates for the west area customers, and we're only talking about city customers. So it's been several years, 10, 11 years since we've adjusted the sewer rates here in the city. And it's been 6, maybe close to 7 years since we've done that for water rates. And we had a presentation on November 17th to this utility board. Jared Hall is here he's partner with Cronin Associates. He did the presentation then. He's going to refresh our memories and get any questions you might have answered, and then put a resolution. There'll be 2 resolutions, one for water, a separate one, different one for sewer. They'll be very similar in tone and messaging and how we arrived at the numbers. And then provided the utility board approves the resolutions tonight, and then I'll march over to City Hall or next door, and we'll put in place. These are ordinance situations when rates are involved. So City Council is the final arbiter on whether we do it and what we do. So I will try to tee that up with Tammy Clark in the mayor's office, provided we move forward here tonight. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Jared, who does have a presentation to go through. About 8 slides and cover water and sewer.
Thanks, Jim. I think you've got this ironed out. We'll work on it here before the meeting, but. Okay. You have to skip the title slide. It's been up there for a while. So anyways, good evening, Jared Hall, Cronin Associates. Thanks for having me out here. As Jim mentioned, we were out here in November of last year talking about these. I don't think there's been a lot of changes, some small tweaks to system development charges. We'll talk about that. What I'd like to do is just quickly history, which Jim touched on there. But so your current water rates, they were adjusted. They're actually adopted back in 2020. I believe they went effective in 22. And so you'll hear me, I'll refer to the 4,000 gallons. That is it's kind of the industry standard, what we compare like a residential home. So some are more, some are less, but that's kind of the apples to apples comparison that we'll utilize. So currently your rates at the 4,000 gallon level is $20.50. So on the water side. Talking about the sewer, that was done, those were adjusted in 2011.
Actually, 2015.
2015.
Yeah, but still, it's been 10, 11 years. Yeah, I'm not sure how.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so then so 2015 was the last change when that went into place there. And so the 4,000 gallon rate for that is $41.53. I always like to put this slide in here to kind of remind everybody that this raising, adjusting utility rates is not something boards enjoy, especially the councils. But you, and specifically the council, as the elected body of the city, you must maintain rates that kind of satisfy, the Indiana Code kind of lays out these things, satisfies these revenue requirements. So you have your operation maintenance expenses, working capital. If you have any debt, so you have to make sure you have revenue sufficient to satisfy your debt payments. And then, of course, you have to maintain a reserve or an allowance for things like depreciation, replacements and improvements, anything that a lot of times come up that, kind of unplanned, but we try and plan by having these reserves in place. So, when we develop the rate or the revenue requirements, we factor in all of these items. Any questions?
And just to point out, we paid off our last water bond about a year ago. So right now we're quote debt-free on the water side, but wastewater, I want to say, is still sitting at a little over $4 million debt and runs for another 10 years payment wise.
Okay, so what we've done here is summarized basically our recommendations by utility, and I'll get into the numbers on the next couple of slides. But on the water, so as mentioned on the previous slide, basically where we're seeing the changes mostly is related to your operation, operating expenses. We're all aware that inflation is real and costs increase over time. Also truing up the depreciation fund. So making sure that there's enough money coming in every year to fund the depreciation, whether it be in that current year or in future years. I know Jim has done a good job. I was looking through my notes, and you've got a list of potential needs. So asset management's a big topic right now, kind of in this utility world, that utilities are required to identify their assets in their system, the life of those assets, and where they are in that. And so it's been a good thing in that it's forced communities to look at that and identify and start quantifying it and preparing, because not all communities are as organized and as Tipton here, right? When it comes to utilities, a lot of them are more reactive than proactive. And so one of the things we utilize when we're creating these allowances is those future asset management and upcoming projects. So what we're proposing, as I mentioned on previous slides, so currently your 4,000 gallon rate is $20.50. With the the proposed rates, it would increase that 4,000 gallon rate to $26. So it's about $5.50 on the average customer. And then we've also put in here, so your availability fees, increasing those. And so what does that mean? An availability fee is a system development charge. And so the idea behind that is that a new home business comes on, connects to the system. All of the people that have lived here and been paying money into that system over the years have basically built the system as it is now. And so for those individuals connecting onto the system, getting access to all those assets, they need it's like a buy-in. And so that's like truly what an availability fee is. It's designed to allow a new connection to buy into the system that's already been paid for by, previous ratepayers. Currently, your availability fee was $250. We're proposing a $1,350 for the residential for one ERU, and so that's like a home would be an ERU, and it actually increases and escalates as the meter size goes up. And the idea behind that is like a 5/8 inch meter, which engineers could speak to this, right, can only flow so much water or sewer. 4-inch meter, likewise, can flow significantly more. And so in designing a system, you have to design the system for like kind of like peak flows, maximum flows, right? So theoretically, if everybody turned on their faucet at the same time, you need to be able to provide the water or sewer flows for that matter. So
Just to point out, Jared, the vast majority of new connections are residential 5/8. We occasionally, like 2 or 3 times a year, get a 1 or 2-inch meter request. And then our largest meter in the system is 6-inch, and that's at the hospital. And we've not had a 4 or 6-inch request in the time I've been here for 5 years. So.
And this is a charge that only impacts new customers. So if anybody connected to the system already utilizing the service, there's no change or increase to them. I did pull some comps just to give you an idea of what similar communities, like I grabbed, for example, Carmel, their water. Their availability fee is $1,447, and theirs is per acre charge. The Hamilton County Regional Water and Sewer District, just down the road here, their system development charge is $5,200.
So every home that connects will pay that.
Pay $5,200. And in their case, their brand new system, they spent a bunch of money to build it. Somebody's got to pay for it. So I would say that the $1,350 is still on the low end. We're seeing a lot of them in that $3,000 to $4,000 range. Obviously, you got to be able to justify the cost, but also you don't want to make it so great that it stalls out any kind of development. As we were talking a little bit before, like we haven't seen any slowdown in growth in those communities that are growing due to this, due to these charges, and they're fair and equitable. So,
Is this only if you build new, not if you like buy an existing home that's already connected?
Correct.
that's correct. As long as it's connected. If you buy a home that's on septic and then you decide you want to connect into the system, then it would apply there. But yeah. On the wastewater, similar, right? We looked at the operating expenses, depreciation funding. In the illustration, we ran 2 scenarios. One was without a additional proposed bond, and one included like a proposed $5 million bond. The $5 million option is
Not on the table.
it's not an option, or it's not under consideration anymore. So So that one is mentioned, currently you're at $41.53. That would increase to $52.02 for the 4,000 gallon charge. This also includes an increase to your Sharpsville and Tipton wholesale customers.
Equal percentages.
Equal percentage, and I think Jim had provided, there's some notices and stuff, right, that have to be taken care of, so they've been notified.
They have.
And then on the wastewater, so you have a connection fee and an availability fee. As I mentioned, the availability fee, same as water, it's getting access, it's buying into the system. That would go, currently it's $250, that would increase to $1,750, and then escalate up based on their meter size. And do they have a copy of like these? That's in the resolution. So yeah, in the resolution, those availability fees and kind of the cost per meter down there at the bottom.
We've got the current fees and the proposed fees. So back. I'd also point, there is a connection fee with water as well, but it didn't change. We maintained it at $1,300.
Okay. Yeah.
For previous and now, so.
Yep. And then on the wastewater, we're proposing to increase that connection fee, and that is a fee that is, it's designed to recoup the cost of you, the utility, like actually connecting them. It's kind of like tangible to the physical materials and labor required to connect them into the system. And so what we've done there is proposed a $1,500 on a kind of residential 5/8 inch connection. And then we've added language to say that, I guess I see how
meter
so
size.
it's $1,500 or actual cost, which we see a lot, and I'm sure you guys can speak to it. Everyone has its own like kind of situation, and so I've heard stories where it's $10,000 because they got to cut up the road and all that stuff, and so it's not really necessarily the burden of the utility, to get them connected, and so this allows you guys to recover any additional costs due to kind of those unique situations. So it's the lesser of $1,500 or actual cost. Or excuse me.
The greater.
The greater.
Correction.
Yeah, that'd be a good deal. Wouldn't it? Any questions this far?
And then same thing on availability fees. It's based on meter size.
Yep.
Everything we do in water and sewer is based on the water meter. So the size of that meter determines these fees we're talking about. It also measures the flow. So anything used for water ends up being part of your sewer charge based on the water meter readout.
So here's kind of the numbers that support those recommendations. So looking at the water first, start at the top. So what we do is we go through your test year. In this case, it might have been 24 because we worked on this last year, but I'm sure we looked at 25, and it's 24 and 25 are representative, no significant changes. So we take the test year, we apply, we look at almost by line item and basically create a budget projection on those operating expenses and come up with a figure. And so for water, it's $1,130,700. As Jim mentioned, you did have a 2010 bond that paid off on January 1, 2025. So currently you have no debt service requirements. We then provide for an allowance for working capital, depreciation, repair and maintenance, effectively anything that's outside of that operating budget, which some years it's more, some years it's less, but the goal is to fund the depreciation, have those resources available when you need them. So that when we put those together, we come up with a total revenue requirement of $1,515,200. You look at your test year revenue, so you brought in about $1 million in kind of your metered sales. $188,000 in fire protection charges, $6,200 in penalties. So your total test year revenues was $1,195,845. If we take the difference between the revenues required and the revenues generated, you have a shortfall of $319,355. So in order to generate that additional revenue, the rates would increase from $20.50 to $26. Another kind of little way to think about it, sometimes this helps, so it's $5.50. It's been about 6 years since your last increase, and so it's about 90 cents a year. Sometimes that, when you put it in that perspective, people, it helps people maybe understand that it's just a slow progression, but we're fighting it off 5-6 years at a time. Questions? Next page, we pulled some rate comps, and I will say that you truly have some of the lowest rates in the state. Like, I don't know that we couldn't find any that fill in down in that area where you guys are at, to be honest.
That's even with the rate increase.
Yeah. I mean, like, I did a double take when I was looking at these, and so, yeah. And if you guys want to see somebody specific, we have kind of all the communities. It's just a matter of which one. We try and find some geographically nearby, similar in size.
Did a good job. It's very representative of neighbors and smaller and larger.
All right, so wastewater, should go to page 6. So I mentioned before that $5 million bonds column. Of course, you can look at it, but it's not really applicable anymore. So same thing. So we looked at the test year, looked at the operating expenses, worked with Jim, and came up with a projection of $1,668,100. We currently have a 2015 bond, and it's actually at 0% interest. So for you bankers and ex-bankers, it's, remember that.
Nice.
Pay it forward.
Where do we get some more of that?
No, so that results in a $334,000 annual debt service payment, and it's probably got about another 10 years. Those are traditionally 20-year financings. We have a allowance, the working capital depreciation allowance of $362,500. Comes up with a total revenue required $2,364,600. Look at this sales, 1.7 in metered sales, 65,000 from Sharpsville, 60 from Tipton, and 27,000 in penalties, for total revenues of $1,893,908. The difference there is, or the revenue shortfall is $470,692. So that's where you get that proposed rate of $52.02.
And you can disregard the right column that shows the $5 million bond. That was Matt. By the way, Matt Smith did our asset management plans for water and wastewater 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
And we got some things we need to do, but nothing of the $5 million sorts right now. So we hope to be able to finance any improvements at the wastewater plant, the lift stations, the collection through this rate increase here. And then if something down the road where we have to do a bigger project and get some debt service.
When you say fine, you mean to like pay-go or cash flow. So we've created a asset replacement plan that will allow you to bite off chunks of it at a time instead of having to borrow money and pay for it over 20 years.
Correct.
It's a good position.
So really, to meet Indiana code, we have to either sell more water or raise our rate. So
Yeah.
look at it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's selling more waters, I mean, because you have marginal cost, but yeah, theoretically growth does defer, any kind of rate increase. Like I see that in rapidly growing communities with a lot of EDU additions, it sustains the rates, but yeah.
As long as you have the capacity.
As long as you have capacity, that's right, and you can issue the permits.
This works out to roughly be about $1 a year increase since it's been about 11 years for the wastewater, correct, Jared?
Yeah. Sure, Jim did
95
correct me.
cents. Yeah, there it is.
2015.
Yep.
It's about $17 total for an average customer.
And again, on your same thing with sewer. And you're still. There's some that are really high. I'm looking even at the top, like that's not even like the highest ones up there. That Sullivan, but I always tell people, a lot of times I'm on the other side. I'm looking at the top, trying to explain, and I always kind of hedge on this a little bit and understand that every community has its own set of facts and circumstances, right? So however you got there, I mean, we've seen communities where their rates have been able to stay really low because they've utilized their TIF, right, to buy down the rate. So we always try and take it with a grain of salt, but yours are purely very competitive. So
Sullivan being up there at $106 a month, what did they do? Did they have to do certain?
yeah, they had to do a significant wastewater treatment plant project.
Yeah, they had
Do you
some,
work down there?
no.
No.
I know
Tipton is.
they've had some, right. They had some like operational problems. Like I think they had farmed out their operations and there was some, I don't know if it was malfeasance, but there were some issues and
They're very different than Tipton, I'll tell you that. Like we do
The
work
size
down there.
wise, they're about the same.
Yeah, I mean, it would be similar, but it's,
But then the next one is Sheridan. I can tell you they did some improvements, $15, $20 million worth of improvements probably 5 years ago. And they were purchased by Indiana American and voila.
100.
So even though we're feeling the pain, this could be a whole lot worse, is what you're telling me.
Yes.
so then, just get like a little summary here. So, these recommended adjustments, right? It's keeping up with your increases in your operating expenses, providing for that depreciation. And that's a big thing, like being, a lot of those communities at the top were reactive and they let it just
Go too far.
go too far. And then, when you're in a situation where you're at the mercy of everybody else dictating
Or
how it's
IDEM.
designed or IDEM, things get expensive exponentially. So by practicing like asset management, replacement, and monitoring, I mean, like hearing that line loss number is incredible. That water line, that's 4%. Yeah, it's truly, I don't think I've ever seen one that low. That's like electric line loss
Yep.
levels. But anyway, sorry. To provide debt service coverage, and then really get your availability connection fees where they belong to make sure it's equitable for the folks connecting, but then also the people that have been here paying into the system for all these years. Sure, it's kind of a fair buy-in, and then your wholesale wastewater treatment charges. And then per you all moving forward with this resolution, which is effectively a recommendation to council. It has to go before them to introduce public hearing and possibly adoption.
Does anybody else have any questions for Jared, or? I think that was very detailed. Thank you for taking the time to do that, Jared. Anything else along that line?
I don't think so. We will do the same presentation for city council. I believe we're currently scheduled to do it on June 22nd. I'll work with the city office to do that. And then there'll be a pause and subsequent meeting at city council where there'll be a public hearing and a second reading of the ordinances, and provided they agree or sign off in our current places to implement the new rates on September 1st of this year. And then that would give the September readings would show up on people's October bills, and one-time rate increase for water and sewer. And that would be it moving forward.
I think as a board, we have really no choice if we want to comply with statute.
Yeah.
To approve the resolution, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Somebody can guarantee that we've got development coming in to increase water usage.
I think it's something that we would all rather not have to do, but reality is if we're going to keep pace and we're going to stay viable, and, you know, it's a necessary evil. We do take it very seriously with a rate increase, obviously. So,
And I think the other thing is if we delay it, then we're just delaying a larger increase down the road.
More pain.
Yeah, so I'll move that we adopt the resolution 2026-04.
there's actually 03 and 04, Pete.
03.
Let's do one at a time.
Okay.
Just do it.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2026-03. Any further questions, comments on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I'll make the motion to pay, to approve resolution 2026-04.
Second?
Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2026-04. Any questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jared.
Yep, thanks, Gary.
Much appreciated.
We'll do that again in a couple weeks. And that's all I have. So if you want to open it up to the board or community, or
Anything else from the board regarding anything, rates or anything else? Okay. Community members, who'd like to go first or go at all?
gentlemen over there, you're good? Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Matt,
No comments.
we're up to you, Bob.
I do. Thank you, Don. Bob Edinger, Tipton. Just a couple questions here. You said them rate increases apply to city limits only?
The city service area, which also includes some systems outside of Doverview, Maxi Edition, that have our water service, but they're not technically in the city. So this service area, not out west by the factory or by 31.
Okay. That's where my question was. You said there would be increases for Sharpsville and Kempton, correct?
Equal percentage is what we're applying to the citizens of Tipton, yes, and they've been notified.
What about the users, not the city and not those? Like out of 2831, they're getting their water, right?
They have their own rate and their own system out there, separate, completely disconnected, except for now the sewer does come in here, but they pay the sewer rate out there. That was clarified last year, I think, through city council.
So there's no increases or anything there?
No,
They were
They-
hired again.
They're a higher rate.
much higher rates out there because it's newer systems, newer.
Oh, okay. I guess the only other thing, is a hard copy of this or digital available to the public?
Yes, I can leave you with a hard copy right here, and they'll be available at the utility office. And then when the ordinance is advertised, this information will be available to them.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Bob. Anyone else?
And anybody that might be on the live stream, if you have my email address, just shoot me an email. I can email the information to you just as easily.
Thank you, Jim.
Yep, thank you.
Anybody else have anything?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
So,
Okay, got a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. We are adjourned.
We need to sign that resolution.
You have them.
Yes.
Nice meeting you. I think I saw you riding like, Memorial Day weekend, is that right? Oddwood. Well, you're on, you got a lean back bike, right? Okay. Well, I was walking